When I was 12, I attended a private school in Zagreb, Croatia. Every day, I took a long trek back to my apartment. The school sat far from the city center, and my commute was an odd little ritual of buses, trams, and the same narrow streets. At first, it felt almost comforting, the repetition of familiar stops, the same tired faces, the small accidental meetings with classmates that made the route feel less lonely. But comfort can fracture in an instant. One late afternoon, during a week of afternoon classes that kept me returning home after dark, a routine trip turned into the single most terrifying night of my life. I left school with a couple of classmates, and we went to the nearby bus stop. We boarded, I found an empty seat, and that's when I first noticed him. A balding, middle-aged man sitting directly behind me. His clothes looked grimy, and there was something in the way he held himself that felt wrong, like a shadow stretched too long. As soon as I sat, I could feel his eyes on me. Not a casual glance, not the polite look someone gives a stranger, an unblinking, cold stare that crawled along my skin. I fumbled for a book to pretend I wasn't paying attention, but the words on the page blurred. My heart beat too loudly to let me read. Every time I thought I'd lost him, his gaze would lock back onto me, patient and deliberate. I considered moving, telling a friend, standing up, anything, but the idea of drawing attention felt worse than staying frozen. When the bus pulled up to the main street, I stepped off with the others and felt a small, fragile relief, until I turned and saw him get off too. He wasn't just watching me anymore, he followed. My stomach dropped, my voice turned to a whisper as I begged a friend not to look back, hoping a group would make him lose interest. At the tram station, our group thinned as people waited for different lines. I needed tram number 2. A friend did too, so we stood together, every sense taut. The man lingered a few meters away, like a stain refusing to fade. We boarded tram 2 and thought we'd left him behind, but he followed again, climbing on just a few stops later. The tram ride stretched into a small eternity. Every jolt felt like it might throw him into my lap. He finally disembarked several stops before mine and disappeared into the park. I told myself it was over. Maybe coincidence, a harmless oddity of the city. Maybe I was being foolish. When my stop arrived, I said goodbye and stepped off, lighter but still wary. From the tram station to my apartment was only 5 minutes, a short walk through streets I could navigate blindfolded. I turned into the quiet alley and then heard the sound that froze me like ice. Footsteps behind me. I didn't need to look to know it was him. My pace doubled, then tripled, each step a drum in my chest. He got closer, the sound of his shoes a dark echo that swallowed the world. At the intercom, my hands shook so violently I could barely press the button. I mumbled into the speaker and prayed my mother would answer the door quickly. The answer never came soon enough. He caught up before the door buzzed open. The smell hit me first, stale sweat and cigarettes, something sour and intimate. He leaned in with a voice too low to be innocent. "Hey, how have you been, buddy? I saw your dad yesterday. He told me all about your new school." The name, the claim, my blood froze. My father had been away for months on a work trip. He was lying, and he wasn't trying very hard. I stood rooted, face empty, throat locked. Then the intercom buzzed and the door clicked open. I bolted inside, slamming the entry behind me, but he jammed his foot into the gap, forcing it to stay slightly ajar. He wasn't giving up. I ran up the stairs, the weight of my school bag dragging and the sound of his footfalls growing behind me. Heavy, deliberate, satisfying. My lungs burned, my legs felt like lead. I didn't stop. On the third floor, my mother stood in the hallway, smiling as if nothing had happened. Without a word, I shoved her into the flat and slammed the door shut. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, tears pouring out of me. My mother asked what was wrong, and something in me pulled me to the peephole. I pressed my eye to the little glass and saw him standing beneath the dim light, staring directly at our door. He watched the building like someone admiring a prize. After a long minute, he turned and walked away, as if the night had been nothing but a casual stroll. My mother called the police. They came, took my statement, and reviewed the building's security footage. The alley was poorly lit. The recordings offered only shadowy shapes that gave little to identify his face. For 2 weeks, I could not make myself walk home alone. My mother drove me to school every day. I avoided buses and trams, avoided empty streets. The fear settled over me like a second skin. Any stranger's silhouette, any sudden footstep, every breath of wind against a dark doorway felt like him. Then, one night while we were watching the news, the anchor showed his face. He had been arrested, accused of attempting to kidnap and assault children in our area. When I saw the photo, my lungs went cold. I realized how close I had come, how different my life might have been if he had caught me that night. The knowledge that he was behind bars offered a brittle relief, but it did not undo the way that evening rewired me. I became hyper-aware, always scanning exits, always calculating the fastest way out. I woke from nightmares where footsteps chased me down endless staircases. I learned to sleep with the lights on, to check the peephole twice, to carry my keys between my fingers like a small weapon. To the man who chased me that night, if you are ever released, I pray our paths never cross. But even now, years later, the memory lingers like a bruise. That night has become a permanent part of me, a shadow stitched to my bones. I would not wish that kind of terror on anyone. "4 years ago, I tore my life apart, piece by piece, and left a bustling East Coast city for London. I had lived there for more than 7 years, built a life and an identity in its streets, and most painfully, shared a home with my girlfriend of 3 years. That little apartment we had decorated together felt like an extension of us, warm, safe, alive. Leaving it was like ripping out a vital organ. On my final evening in the city, I wanted to say goodbye to everything that felt like mine. My girlfriend and I went to our favorite sunset spot, the place where we had laughed, argued, dreamed, and kissed countless times. The view was burning orange, the sky sinking into night, and I thought, this is how I'll close the chapter. This is how I'll let go. But the city had something else planned. As we left for our apartment, one last night together before I boarded my flight, I ordered an Uber. In my haste, I sent it to the wrong pickup spot, a few blocks away. I grabbed my girlfriend's hand and we jogged toward it. That's when I noticed her. A woman, maybe early 30s, was running too. She was short, neatly dressed, clutching a T-Mobile bag, her other hand buried inside her purse like it was fused to her body. At first, I brushed it off as coincidence. Maybe she too had called an Uber. I even joked about it. But as we dodged through intersections and streets, no matter our pace, she kept directly behind us. At the next traffic light, instinct overruled me. I stopped abruptly, tightening my grip on my girlfriend's hand. The woman nearly ran into us before halting a few steps ahead. She turned, startled, eyes darting like she expected something to leap out of the shadows. That's when I asked her, sharp and uneasy, "What do you want?" Her response came without hesitation, trembling, frantic. I need to get in the cab with you. My life is in danger." The way she said it sent a pulse of ice down my spine. Her hand never left her purse. Her gaze kept slashing across the street like she was waiting for someone or something to appear. I told her no. There was no way she was coming home with us, especially knowing my girlfriend would be alone in that apartment after I left. I offered instead to walk her to a police station or find her a safe place. She begged, repeated it over and over. Her voice cracked, her eyes watered, and her desperation almost convinced me. But something deep inside, that primitive alarm bell, kept telling me that letting her in was a colossal mistake. We stood there on the side of the road, the city pressing in around us, for what felt like hours, though it was minutes. She pleaded. I refused. To make it clear, I even canceled my Uber right in front of her. Her face twisted with panic, but my gut held firm. Finally, she relented. "Fine, then just get me an Uber." She pulled a brand new iPhone box from her T-Mobile bag with a Post-it note stuck to the front, an address scribbled in shaky writing. She handed it to me. It was the only time her hand came out of that purse, and immediately, it went back inside, clutching whatever she had hidden like her life depended on it. I typed the address, a lonely street on the city's outskirts, near the woods, the kind of place where the streetlights die early and no one hears you scream. I ordered the ride. When the car arrived, she climbed in wordlessly. No thanks, no explanation. I watched until the taillights disappeared. When the ride ended, I texted her. Silence. And that silence has stayed with me. Even now, years later, I think about her. Was she truly being hunted? Was it a scam? A setup? A trap? Was she genuine? Or would letting her in have destroyed us? I'll never know. But I can still see her eyes, jerking, frantic, searching, and her hand clutching something hidden. To that woman, wherever you are, I hope you found the safety you needed. But I also hope, with everything in me, that we never meet again. Because a part of me still wonders if that night, had I chosen differently, my story would have ended in the dark. This happened nearly 20 years ago, but the memory still makes my skin crawl. Let me take you back to the early 2000s, a time before smartphones ruled everything, when getting home meant ringing a licensed taxi company and waiting for a real driver to arrive. That ordinary ritual felt comforting then, a small, predictable ritual at the end of nights out. I never expected it to turn into one of the most unnerving encounters of my life. One evening, I booked a cab from a friend's house to my flat in North London. It was dusk when the car pulled up. The light was already leaving the sky, and the city seemed to hold its breath. When I stepped outside, the driver walked up to meet me. He was older, maybe in his 50s, roughly dressed, not the tidy professional I had pictured. As he reached me, he placed a hand briefly on my shoulder, a light, deliberate touch. It wasn't friendly. It was the sort of touch that claims a territory. A tiny alarm pinged in my chest. Why did he touch me? I told myself it was nothing, just an awkward habit, and climbed into the back seat. The journey was meant to take 20 minutes. At first, he chatted in that loose, automatic way taxi drivers do. This was his last fare, no plans after. The admission hung in the air like a loose thread. I glanced at his taxi ID tucked on the dashboard. Licensed, booked through the firm my friend used. That little rectangle of plastic should have been reassurance. Instead, it felt like paper armor. I buried myself in my phone to distract, something primitive like Snake, tiny, useless comfort. The city rolled by. After a while, I finally looked up, and my stomach did a slow, terrible drop. We were nowhere near my usual route. We were driving into a sparser part of the city. Abandoned buildings, cars left to rust, a silence that filled the spaces between streetlights. Shadows pooled in gutters, the lamps flickered like tired watchmen. The scene did not belong on the way to my flat. The driver's behavior confirmed the wrongness. His head kept swiveling toward the alleys we passed, his breath heavy and uneven. It wasn't confusion, it was searching, patient, methodical. He slowed when he saw deserted side streets, then accelerated again, tasting the isolation. A cold voice inside me screamed, "He is looking for a place to stop, a place where no one will come." I forced my voice steady. "I don't know where we are," I said. He didn't answer, his eyes still skimming the dark entrances of buildings. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to speak again, louder this time. I told him my friend expected me to call when I got home, that if I didn't check in, she would call the taxi company or the police. The name of someone waiting became a talisman. Whatever flicker of plan he'd been following, it faltered. Without a word, he turned the car and joined the main road. Familiar streets reappeared like bruises healing. As we neared my flat, I didn't want him to know my door. My sister was away that night. I would be alone the next days. I lied, something small and sharp. "Actually, could you drop me at the corner shop? I just remembered I'm out of milk." He pulled over without a question. I stepped out, hands suddenly cold, and pretended to browse the aisles. I bought nothing. I couldn't think of spending money, and the shop felt like an island of light I could step into until the danger passed. When I finally left and walked back toward my building, my chest tightening with every step, my stomach dropped into a new level of dread. There, parked just outside the entrance, was his cab. He sat inside, engine off, shadow filling the window like a stain. He'd followed me. He knew I hadn't bought milk. The realization landed like a stone. I kept my head down, fumbled for keys, and hurried to the door. Inside, I slammed it and bolted the locks, then crept to the window and peered through the curtains. He was still there, sitting in the dark, watching the building as if waiting for something to happen. I grabbed my phone and called my friend in a whispering, shaky voice, telling her everything. When I dared to look again, the car was gone. He had left, or had he simply melted into the night to return later? The uncertainty burned. I didn't report it at the time. I rationalized. He'd done nothing overtly illegal. He could claim he'd gotten lost or made a wrong turn. He knew where I lived. I was afraid of drawing attention, of retaliation. Looking back, I regret not calling it in. Even if nothing had been taken from me that night, the act of following someone, of sitting beneath their window in the dark, is a form of menace. It could have saved someone else from the same fear. That night changed me. I sleep with the curtains closed, check the street twice when I come home, flinch at the sound of brakes. The memory of his heavy breathing, scanning the alleys, and then waiting outside my doorway lingers like an aftertaste. Sometimes in the quiet hours, I imagine the man as a shape that is still out there, patient, waiting for the right person. Whoever you were, I hope I never see you again. Whoever you were, I hope someone else reported you and that you were stopped. And if you were just a lonely, tired man who made a mistake, forgive me for the fear I felt. But the fear was real, and it taught me something ugly and essential about how small choices can keep us safe.